Thanks for having me here. So as we age, there are multiple hallmarks of aging that are related to different biological pathways. So essentially you have the genomic instability, you have the epigenetic alterations, a loss of proteostasis that takes place, and then you have the sort of mitochondrial dysfunction happening together with sort of decrease in nutrient sensing. And that sort of leads to a loss of communication between the different cellular organelles. This, as we age, these sort of key hallmarks of aging, they all get affected, and that really affects how we produce energy and how we produce ATP within our cells. And that's really why we are talking here today, is really how cellular nutrition is sort of the bedrock of our health span and human health. So the key organelle here to keep in mind is the mitochondria. So of course I always say that sort of good aging or a good health span depends on three pillars. You need to have a good diet, you need to have a good lifestyle, exercise, and then there is sort of the third arm, which is really the cellular health behind supporting these two pillars. And so mitochondria are the key organelles called the powerhouses of the cell that essentially take these nutrients and convert them into cellular energy that we call as ATP, which is really the currency of energy. And so with aging, what happens is basically mitochondria decline, the function of the mitochondria in different organs that starts declining. And that's really what's happening, why we are sort of feeling this disruption of the cellular processes and a decline in energy as we age. Sure, this is, as a clinician, I mean, this is what we see on a daily basis when we are, seeing patients or we're running clinical trials. What you will see is on a daily basis or daily activities of living is really a lack of energy as you perform your daily tasks. You may feel fatigue. At the end of the day, you may want that you were left wanting to do much more that you could accomplish. So that's a key sort of aspect of it. And then if you're exercising as we are aging, as we are going from our middle age to the elderly sort of health span, if you exercise, you will feel that you're taking much longer to recover. These are really some of the key features that sort of point to the decrease in cellular function. This links to your previous question, and what you will see if there's decline in cellular function. So if you're taking some of these nutrients that do impact on mitochondrial health, you will see much more energy at the end of the day. You will see that your recovery or your ability to do exercise, if you're doing that, is improved, for example. And what we see in our clinical studies with a certain nutrient that impacts on the mitochondrial health is that people even have better muscle strength, for example, or they can walk better, they feel more energy at the end of the day. So these are sort of the benefits that you will see, really improved exercise performance, etc. That's a tough question. So the way we run our clinical trials is really by we work on healthy populations, so we work with healthy adults, and we try to get a very homogeneous sort of inclusion-exclusion criteria to select a good population. Now, I don't think I have a clear-cut answer for you there, what differentiates responders and non-responders, but we do see that everyone's metabolism is different. So the magnitude of effect, for example, in walking, after being on, let's say, 4 to 6 months of supplementation, some person may walk better than the other, and this really, I think, boils down to the fact what your nutrition has been previously, how compliant you have been to taking the product over the time, and how you're absorbing the product, because you may end up absorbing a bit better than the non-responders, as you're calling it, and I think those are the key features that segregate how your individual metabolism will react to your response to the nutrient supplementation. So there has been a lot of recent research on metformin to sort of extend the health span. Now, where these nutritional supplements or nutrients, two of them that we are well aware of, at least improve NAD function, and they act on a process called mitophagy to sort of accelerate the the poor functioning mitochondria, and that's the nutrient we call as urolithin A. These are the two compounds that are different from metformin in the fact that they're natural, okay? So they have a very superior safety profile because, of course, they're naturally derived. Metformin acts by, it's been a drug that has been around for 30 plus years, been given to diabetics, for example, who have elevated blood glucose. So I'm not sure people have looked at 30 years of diabetics who have been on this drug if they've been living longer, for example, with metformin. But metformin acts specifically on AMPK pathway, which is basically a pathway to improve mitochondrial efficiency. NAD's pathway is basically acting on the mitochondrial biogenesis pathway, which is where compounds like nicotinamide riboside act to increase the abundance of mitochondria. Now, where urolithin A acts is basically recycling of the faulty mitochondria. So they're all acting on different biological pathways of mitochondria, and they're natural and they're safe compared to drugs which may have some side effects associated with them. Aging or age-related decline in muscle health is basically our muscle mass and strength peaks in third decade of life, and then every decade we have about a 3 to 8% loss in muscle mass and strength. Now, with conditions that you mentioned, like COPD or cancer, which results in muscle wasting called cachexia, this is greatly accelerated. The decline is greatly accelerated. So there have been studies done in COPD patients and their skeletal muscles showing there's mitochondrial dysfunction in their muscles. And the tests we are using in clinic to assess are pretty similar. So for example, walking test. If you do a walking test for 6 minutes, it's the same test we are doing in COPD patients and cancer patients to really assess the functionality and the improvement. So the mitochondria decline or the dysfunction of mitochondria is very key, whether it's primary or secondary sarcopenia. So I think potentially future studies need to look into these particular conditions to see if there's a benefit. Mitophagy is sort of this very well-conserved anti-aging pathway that is always happening in the background in cells. Mitophagy, think of it as a cellular garbage machinery pathway that is clearing up the cellular garbage over time. This pathway declines with aging, and so what you're getting in your cells is basically an accumulation of cellular debris. And so it has been seen, for example, in old people who have sarcopenia, for example, that this process is impaired. And so by activating this conserved pathway, we can clean up the cellular debris and allow newer mitochondrial, improved mitochondrial health. And that's really exercise is sort of a way to improve mitophagy. This is well known that regular exercise, intermittent fasting is another one. So these two are sort of the known pathways that act on mitophagy. So that's what I was mentioning compared to classical interventions like exercise and fasting that are known to impact mitophagy. Compliance to regular exercise or compliance to intermittent fasting is very hard. And so by sort of doing cellular nutrition via nutrients like urolithin A, which has been shown to activate this very specific pathway, you can sort of derive similar benefits in association with these other pathways that we are well aware of. And urolithin is a very specific activator of mitophagy, and we have shown that in multiple high-impact publications. So classically, high-protein supplementation interventions were used to sort of boost muscle mass traditionally, and in the hope that this will translate into muscle quality and strength. But I think where mitochondrial health and cellular nutrition really plays an impact is improving the bioenergetics and really the muscle quality. And so what we have seen with urolithin A in our recent completed clinical studies, which are all double-blind placebo-controlled studies, is that 4 months of supplementation with a mitophagy activator like urolithin A is significantly improving muscle strength. Now, I think an overlap exists where you can think of sort of supplementation together with high protein to boost muscle mass, and with nutrients like urolithin A that is acting, on top of these supplementations to boost the energetics and the muscle quality. So there are a number of age-related studies in cohorts, longitudinal aging cohorts, that have looked at the impact of exactly what you're asking. And what they have seen is that exercise has a very clear-cut impact on improving, regular exercise has a very clear-cut impact on improving mitochondrial health. And even in studies where they have brought in elderly, 80, 85-year-old elderly, and put them on an exercise regimen, they have seen improvements in mitochondrial health, cellular health, and in physical performance. But the problem, again, remains with exercise is the moment you stop exercise, these effects sort of decrease after the interventions have been stopped or is gone. So I think that's where I see exercise and nutrition as the two pillars of aging, and then the third pillar is really these sort of bioactives that support cellular nutrition, and then they can help maintain the benefits from these, the classical with diet and lifestyle and exercise pathways that we know of. So what we have been looking at from an aging perspective in these cellular nutritions is what is it changing? So our gut microbiome is changing for once. We have seen that only, again, going back to the example of urolithin A, we have seen that only 30% people have the natural ability to make urolithin A from dietary precursors. Now, not everyone is taking the right diet, and not everyone is, of course, has the right gut microbiome, and that's why you need to supplement with nutrients like urolithin A. And so at the macro and sort of course, you need to have proper, as you mentioned, high protein supplements. You need to give enough nutrients like vitamin B and vitamin D as you age. But where cellular nutrition is really coming is, as I mentioned at the start, it's the bedrock, the foundation of cellular health, which is declining with aging. So they all sort of, work together, and that's how I see the cellular nutrition is the missing piece of the puzzle that is sort of, supporting these other macro and micro nutrition. Yeah. So yeah, again, as I mentioned, you start losing your muscle mass and strength after the third, fourth decade of life, and it becomes greatly accelerated. So I'm in my mid-40s already, and as I mentioned, even just to finish with the professional balancing kids and everything, you're always left at the end of the day feeling, oh man, I wish I could have this little bit more energy to complete this task. And so that's where I think cellular nutrition is really coming in. Of course, our gut microbiome has evolved over time. I can tell you that I can drink a liter of juice hoping that I would get naturally urolithin A, but I don't have the gut microbiome, and I can never make urolithin A. So I really, and these are probably epigenetic alterations that you were mentioning, that changes in microbiome in the cell, that I need to sort of bring these supplements or cellular nutrition with either NAD supplementation or with urolithin A to help me have a better health span. I think that's where the story really fits in well. I think this is a very exciting new emerging field, cellular nutrition. I can speak for one of the nutrients we have been working on quite a bit, and what has really been our understanding has really focused on these sort of conserved anti-aging pathways that previously were not either underappreciated or not really exploited. And the fact that we can do this with nutrition and naturally and safe molecules is really, for me, a game changer for the nutrition field. And that's where I feel that this particular field and consuming these supplements on a regular basis will really help us, sort of live that extended health span that we all dream of, being, at 80 years old and going to the grocery store and being mobile enough and doing what we are doing when we are 50. I think that's really the sort of dream, and that's really why we should be taking this starting in our middle age, these supplements. Thank you.